the Evenings Podcast. My name is Emily, this is Moonlight, and we are here today to interpret knitting patterns as Taylor Swift albums. Because her latest album, Midnights, came out just a few days ago, and I've been obsessed, of course, so I wanted to continue on that Taylor Swift train and try and bring that into the knitting world a little bit with today's episode. So we're gonna see how this goes. I did my research. I got photos selected from every era with patterns that kind of go with the styles from the era, whether it's the tour or her street style or photos from the album or topics of the songs in the albums. So let's get started. I wanted to try and do one song per track on Midnights, but I don't know, I'm not familiar enough with the album yet where I feel confident doing that. So we're just gonna go era by era for now. And if this is popular, if there's enough Swifties who are also knitters, maybe we can make this a series of some sort. We'll see. Okay, so let's start way back with debut Taylor Swift by Taylor Swift. And this was her first ever album, of course. I got it for Christmas, 2006, 2007, whatever year it came out. And I was like 15 at the time, I think. So I've been a fan from the very beginning. Now, going back, it was kind of weird looking back at the outfits and her vibe from the era because it is so different than now. It was very classic, sweet, feminine, young country. She always had the cowboy boots, of course, her big curly hair, and she just wore dresses all the time. I couldn't even find a picture that wasn't in a dress. So, to represent that, I thought, let's select some knit dresses. A few of my favorites that I chose were the Missoula Made Dress by J. Taylor Locke. It's really fun, flirty, feminine. All of Taylor's dresses that she really wore were above the knee, just like this one. This has a nice flowy skirt. Or we can go with the Highlights tunic and tee, and that's by Juana Roman. And that has some really pretty lace work and what appears to be flowers throughout. So again, really gives a feminine, fun, flirty feel. And then we go into Knititude with her Easy Eyelet Yoke dress. I love this dress. I love Knititude's patterns. They're easy to read, so I of course wanted to include her here somewhere, but again, it's got that elastic, so it cinches in at the waist, and then a really fun flirty skirt that's perfect for summer. I've got some more patterns selected if you want to check out my Ravelry bundle on the EB Knits Ravelry group page. Otherwise, I'm just going to go with maybe 3 to 5 per era for suggestions. So moving from her debut album into her second album, Fearless. Of course, this was Grammy award-winning album of the year. And of course, it had a very fairy tale-esque theme as well for love story. Today was a fairy tale, White Horse. It was very much, I'm a princess, Romeo and Juliet vibes. So let's carry that over into these knit patterns. There is the Antiquity Blouse by Fable Knitwear. A lot of Fable Knitwear pieces are very antique. They're very delicate and beautiful, which is really the vibes I get from this era and from this theme that I'm selecting from this era. The next one is the Be Mine Blouse by Park Williams from Park and Knit. This is a very feminine top with just a little bit, it looks like a picot edge, very flirty but simple, otherwise very, very cohesive. And then there's several designs by Trico Design, MCL. Then it's also a very wide range of sizes for this. I tried to select diverse pattern designers as well as size inclusive patterns. So the one I'm looking at right now is the Menuet top. It's very flirty, it's very beautiful. It's got some lace work in the front with some puffy sleeves, which I think is very antique, very classic. And there's also the Nora sweater by Irene Lynn, which is very similar. It's a structured, straightforward top with then big poofy sleeves with just a little bit of a pattern on there to add a little bit of that elegance. So then we move from Fearless, Fairy Tale into Speak Now, which is another country album, her third album at this point. And here I was really looking at the music videos because in terms of her style, she wasn't changing her style with every era just yet, at least from what I can tell from what I was deciphering in the photos. However, in her music videos, I specifically looked at Mine, and a lot of the tops she was wearing are very simple. There was a couple of knit sweaters she wore. They were simple stockinette with a loose gauge that were a little bit flowy and a teeny bit oversized. So based on that, I was looking for very simple stockinette pullovers and sweaters. One, if they had a loose gauge, and two, something simple just with a little bit of a unique flair. So the first pattern for that is the Zoetic by Tiff Nealon. It's all over stockinette, but it's got a herringbone cuff and hem and cuff and neckline. So it's just a little bit of an extra added detail that brings something special and different to the pattern. Then I got into some loose, flowy, loose gauge tops. And here we have the Nawag sweater. I do not know if I'm pronouncing that right, but that is a crochet design by Katarina Designs, and it's very loose fitting, it's very oversized. We've got the Beachy Breezy Cardi by Knitting Tipsy. I love this pattern. It is a cardigan, but it's knit at a very loose gauge in Surrey alpaca or mohair, so it has that same element of all stockinette, very simple, but loose, flowy, airy gauge. Then we go into the Earth and Air by James N. Watts, which is a brioche pattern, so it's a little bit more complex than stockinette, but it's knit in extremely loose gauge again, so it brings that fluffiness, that airiness, and that loose, oversized, a little bit of simplicity because it is all over just brioche. So now we flip from Speak Now and we're transitioning into the Red era. For this, I took into account Red, the original, as well as Red Taylor's version, All Too Well, the 10-minute version, the short film for All Too Well. There were 3 separate motifs here that I wanted to incorporate that I thought were standouts from different parts of the era of Red. So one is her tour. She had very circus elements in her music videos and on tour. She had a top hat. And based on this, I found the Sideshow pullover by Melissa Kemmerer of Nomadic Knits. There's a whole Nomadic Knits issue 5 Vermont. It has a lot of circus heavy acrobatic patterns. This one stuck out to me. It looked like a circus tent. I thought it would be really fun to incorporate there. And then there's the Leon, which is again very stripy. She is also wearing a top hat in her pattern photos, so that's one of the main reasons it reminded me. But this is by San Berjard, and again, I could be mispronouncing names, I apologize. But it's published in Into the Circus, Philcolana, season 22, spring summer 2022. So it's a relatively new pattern, and again, this entire booklet encompasses a lot of circus elements, themes, and designs. Now, however, moving from that circus theme, also she featured a top very heavily again in music videos in her tour. It was a striped top. So I thought, let's go off here. And we've got the Stripes by Andrea Mowry. It's a very simple classic pattern again, but it does heavily feature just that, stripes. Now, of course, a major part of the Red era, which wasn't a single originally, but the second time around, Taylor's version, All Too Well, the 10-minute version, it had its own short film. It was really the star of the show for Red Taylor's version. And this incorporated, of course, a lot of fall vibes. Most of Taylor's albums come out in the fall. This is a really fall, cozy album. And when I think of this, I think of big cozy sweaters. So this is a little bit of stripes, a little bit of cozy. Stratified by Tiff Nealon. Then we've got Grammy's Medley Sweater by Tina Say Knits. I think this is a gorgeous sweater, and it really, the little bit oversizedness to it really just incorporates fall cozy vibes in my opinion. And then I've got 2 more, which is the Rug Sweater by Junko Okamoto. This again, to me, is just a classic, cozy, oversized, hugs you in fall sweater. And then I also chose the Skylights by Tanis Lavalley. And this is an oversized pattern once again with a little bit of cable detail on the front, which again just speaks fall. The final piece of that era is the red scarf. We couldn't forget that. So there is a pattern called the All Too Well Scarf by Kristen McDonald from Studio Knit. And this pattern is your classic red scarf that's featured in All Too Well. And I didn't want to leave that out because it's of course a massive part of the Red era. So then we venture from Red into 1989, which is of course a massive turn. Now it's her first pop album. I think her style in general changed a lot. We saw a lot of crop tops, a lot of flirty and feminine matching sets. We've got short shorts, we've got high-waisted shorts with crop tops, bralettes, that kind of thing. I think that heavily featured both on tour and in her everyday street style. Here I selected a lot of crop tops. I've got the Twinning Cardi by Safia Tele of Drunk Knitter, and it's just a gorgeous combination of a bralette with a matching cardigan. Then I also love the Bow Tie Tank by Park and Knit. It is a multicolored tank top with bows on the straps, and I just think it's really unique. It's special. It's a crop, it's a tank, which again we saw a lot of in that era. I wanted to feature the Layla bralette by Joan Ho. This is a really pretty bralette that I wanted to make for a long time. I wanted to feature the Soul by Jacqueline Cieslak. And it's really got this beautiful brioche side detail. So it is a crop sleeveless top, but it has that extra brioche detail here. And then finally, the Another One shoulder top by Christelle Liu. And the reason I wanted to feature this one is it is that one shoulder. It's very tight fitting. It's got a lot of negative ease, but it's just unique. It's not your everyday top. It's not your everyday crop top. It's got that structure of that one shoulder. It is a bit of a different design. And I think that stood out in this era is it was just so different from her traditional style that she'd had in the past. So now, of course, we had that long break after 1989, and we moved into Reputation. This, of course, had a lot of dark, gothic, moody elements featuring black and white motifs very heavily. So the patterns I chose to represent the Reputation era were the Nightingale by Nora Gone. This one I selected, this was in a Pom Pom magazine in 2018, and I selected this because it's just so moody and dark. And on the front, the cable, it's not necessarily a snake, but it can definitely almost interpret as a snake, which was, of course, a heavy motif, a heavy feature and metaphor in that era. Then there's the Love Magic sweater by Disco Stitch. This just has such vampy, witchy vibes with the extra massive sleeve. And that was a big part of Reputation too, was just being so extra, being so out there, getting your revenge. Look what you made me do. You know, like all of the crystals in the videos. It was just a step beyond. Then we've got the Look at My Holes by James N. Watts again. Now I chose this pattern because it is so unique. It has that holy elements, but I really look at it and I could see in black like a gothic kind of Reputation version of this top. And finally, I'm repeating designers. I've got Park Williams Cold Shoulder Crop because this one is just a high neck. I think the cables in it and the texture on the sleeveless top and how fitted it is really just fit in once again into the Reputation era of, there's just something about this top that the high neck, it just looks, I don't even know how to explain it, but it just looks like I'm a badass bitch, don't mess with me. And that's what this era was all about. Next, of course, we do basically a 180 and we're in Lover era. We're all pastel rainbows. We're all colorful. We're featuring butterflies and sparkles and fun and color and just all of these bright vibes, and it's a completely different mood. It's all about love. It's all about a love story. It's all about embracing love of all varieties, embracing gay rights. It's just so many, just so different from Reputation. I selected again another couple of pom-pom patterns. This is the Solasta by Kindred Red. I love the different colors that are featured in this pattern. You can use, of course, any scrap yarn you want, but it is just so fun and pretty. So next is the Leonaro by Pope Vergara. And this is again in pom-pom. It is a gorgeous sweater that you can make your own, but it features so many different textures and styles. It has beads, it has intarsia with different colors that you can incorporate. It's got mohair or Surrey alpaca. It has a contrast color hem and button band. It is everything about this I've been in love with from the moment I saw it. This Pom Pom magazine has a lot more patterns that you can take a look at as well that just scream Lover to me. Then let's talk about a bag for a minute. We've got the Rainbow Sunburst tote bag. Now, butterflies were a massive element of the Lover era, not so much flowers, but this was just so colorful to me. I love flowers, so I wanted to incorporate this as well, and it's an accessory rather than a sweater. And then I also wanted to touch on the Pressed Flowers cardigan. That's a brand new cardigan from Amy Christoffers based on her shawl pattern. I love it. The flowers are knit in Spin Cycle or any other color changing yarn that you might have. So that way it brings just way more color to the shawl. And again, to the cardigan. And I realized butterflies, snakes turning into butterflies was really the motif in the Lover era, but how can you not love flowers? At least I love flowers. And then there's a couple more tops. Then we've got the Ariwa short sleeve pullover by Kumbi Ewa Equinolan. Excuse me for mispronouncing. And it is an all over textured sweater, but it's just this beautiful lace work throughout the entire top. And it's not a heavy sweater, it's a lightweight spring top, just like the As If Tee by Shay Johnson. This is a top that was popular just a few years ago in the knitting community. I would call it a very stylish top with mohair intarsia at the top, and then the rest of it is whatever fun color you want to incorporate. And it really just brings spring, summer vibes into our knitting. And then finally, we've got the Souffle by Penrose Knits. This is, again, a very feminine top. I could definitely see it in a pink or purple for the Lover era with the ruffle across the top. I think that just screams, again, feminine, fun. So that was quite a few tops for the Lover era, but I just found a bunch that I loved. And of course, next we were in the surprise era of Folklore Evermore. So Folklore, how can you not feature the cardigan? So I found two cardigan patterns, one by Amy Gunderson and one by Lion Brand Yarn. They're both called the Folklore cardigan. I don't know if one's better than the other, but they're both very beautiful pattern pictures. They both have 100 or more projects on Ravelry. And then I also want to feature the Maurizio sweater by Joan Ho. Now, I know she based this off of a character in House of Gucci. However, I found a picture of Taylor Swift wearing a cabled turtleneck white sweater during the Folklore era, and immediately this sweater came to mind. I am going to just add a couple of different elements because, of course, part of Folklore Evermore was a lot of cottagecore as well. So a few more tops that scream cottagecore to me are the Faye Summer Top by Irene Lynn. This has really fluttery, flowy sleeves, a dainty cable on the front. There's the Floor Top by Irene Lynn as well. And this one is a little bit oversized, still got a flutter sleeve. It's a little bit of a baby doll top, I think I would say, where it's just goes out so dramatically with so much positive ease. And then finally we have a top literally called the Cottagecore Crop. I saw Knit California, she's a podcaster, make this top. It was super cute on her, which again has a ruffle on the bottom, ruffle sleeves and buttons at the front of the top as well. So then Evermore, of course, it had a lot of the similar vibes, a lot of similar style in my opinion to Folklore. But some of these photos that I found from this era had a lot more plaid and flannel features. So I found some plaid, flannel, tartan style patterns. There's the Tartan Token Tube by Tracy Miller. It's a hat and cowl combo that are matching. Then I have this tartan plaid pattern throughout. Then of course there's the Great Gingham Raglan by Jessie May. The sample photos are a little bit too vibrant in my opinion for this era, but if you did this in more toned down colors, it would match, I think, excellently with the Evermore vibes. And then I found a couple of blankets. So there's the Wildwood Plaid Blanket by Alexandra Tavel of Two of Wands, and then the Moonstone Plaid Blanket. One is knit, one is crochet. They're very similar, just different crafts. And again, it's just a cozy element to bring into your home that features a little bit of that cottagecore plaid flannel coziness that was the Evermore era. And finally, that brings us to Midnights. And to be honest, I'm still figuring out how Taylor Swift's style, which is very retro, very 70s, incorporates into the music. So a few patterns that match that retro 70s style that she's been wearing. And I think we're gonna see a lot in the music videos that are gonna be coming out even more. So we've got the Throwback by Andrea Mowry. We've got the Harlequin Jumper by Fable Knitwear. And finally, the Very Vero V-neck by Knitting Tipsy. So again, it's crochet, and it just speaks very retro, very throwback to me. So that wraps up my breakdown of Taylor Swift albums as knitting patterns and knitting patterns that fit into each era. I hope you enjoyed this. Thank you so much for being here. I'd love to hear in the comments any patterns that you think would be a great part of any of her eras, as well as if you have any specific songs that match up with a specific pattern. Please like and subscribe to this channel. It really helps me grow and allows me to keep creating this content. If you liked this video, I think you'd also appreciate my fall pattern recommendations when it's still pretty hot outside, when you live in warm climates like me, but you still want to embrace that fall coziness. So take a look at that video, and I hope to see you in the next one. Happy making and happy listening to Taylor Swift.